Welcome, aspiring photographer that wants to get your very first new camera this year. It's a jungle out there. We're going to skip all the BS and try to be as practical as we can so we can choose the right camera for you. After watching this, you should be in a much better position to choose what's right for you without spending a small fortune that you don't need to. Let's get right into the most important part, and I'll suggest a few cameras at the end of this video. The first thing you should think about is the budget. What are you willing to spend on your new camera? Cameras these days can range from under $500 to several $1,000s depending on what brand, what features you want, etc, etc. But as a beginner, you don't need to think too much about this yet, and setting a budget will help you avoid overspending with features you might not even need for years. As with any hobby, it has its initial cost, but a camera in this price range will last you for years in terms of features and everything you need to grow as a photographer, videographer, vlogger, content creator, or whatever it is that you want to create with a camera. Most cameras in this price range will cover all the basics, such as excellent image quality, easy to use settings, and video capabilities, which is very important in a well-rounded camera. Once you've got a budget, it's time to think about the size and how portable you want your camera to be. This is also a very important factor we need to think about, and I'll get back to why in a bit. Cameras comes in all shapes and sizes. From small pocketable point-and-shoot cameras, they are very likely for you to always bring with you. Then you can go for the slightly bigger mirrorless cameras out there where you can change lenses. So that really enables you to be more creative, but you are more flexible with the smaller point-and-shoot cameras. So think about what you would like to. Are you more likely to bring your camera with you always if it's a small pocketable point-and-shoot, or would you like to have a bit more creative flexibility with an interchangeable lens camera where you can swap out lenses, such as on this one right here. That's my Fujifilm X-T5, but that's a bit more advanced. A Fujifilm X-106, that's a fixed lens camera, meaning you can't change lenses on it, but it's very pocketable and it has this super awesome retro look to it. It's the traveler's choice or the traveler's favorite. It has excellent image quality and fits almost in your pocket. Then you have the Sony RX100 series that definitely fits in your pocket. You can zoom with the lens on this camera, making it a bit more flexible. It has great video capabilities as well, and it fits in your pocket. So those are two very good pocketable-ish cameras that you can go for in this department. I've used both these cameras before. Now sadly the Sony RX100 rests with the fishes in the Okavango Delta deep inside of Botswana. I lost it there, I think 5 years ago now, but a great camera. And when I went to Iran in 2019, I brought my big full-frame camera with a even bigger lens and the small Fujifilm X100. Which camera did I use the most? It was the X100, because it was so small, less conspicuous, and that's something that really matters, especially if you're traveling in places like Iran. Bigger, more expensive, or more technologically advanced isn't always better. No sir. Now let's talk about the brands, because you have so many brands to choose from in this day and age, but I would suggest that you stick to any of the major brands, such as Canon, that's perhaps the most famous one, then Nikon, Fujifilm, or Sony. If you choose between these brands, they have excellent beginner cameras in their range. You are golden. You will have no problems with tech support, and you can find accessories and parts or the cameras in most countries out there. Their service is also very good, so you can get your camera repaired if you are unlucky relatively quickly, especially if you are traveling. That's always something to think about. There are so many more threads and tip videos and tip articles online for the different models within these brands, so it just makes it so much easier for you to find the information you need about the camera you choose. As for brands, the Sony cameras out there, they are known for their super fast and very accurate autofocus, and the Fujifilm cameras, everybody loves them for their color science. They have some excellent images right out of the camera, and that's something we do appreciate over here, especially since then you don't have to think too much about editing your photos if that's what you want. With a film simulation in the Fujifilm cameras. I'm a Fujifilm user and I think they have some excellent cameras for beginners. I just love the look of Fujifilm. I've used Sony's before, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like picking up the cameras as much as I do with my Fujifilm cameras. This is an X-T5. But the cameras that we'll talk about later from Fujifilm, they look very similar to this. They have this retro look and feel to it. And that always makes me want to pick it up and go out in the streets for my everyday photographic adventures. So I use my cameras, and when you use your camera, that's how you get better in whatever you want to create with your camera. The good news is that most cameras today, even the beginner-friendly ones, comes with the features such as autofocus, built-in filters, good video quality as I've said, and you don't need to spend extra on high-end specs such as 8K video or super high megapixels that you don't need anyway. As a beginner, you're likely to start on auto mode, and that's okay. Don't worry too much about features like high frame rates or pro-level manual settings until you're more comfortable. It's much better to focus on capturing the moment than fiddling around with buttons and settings, and yeah, you might miss some really cool moments out there. I also think that high megapixels is more of a selling point and a measure of technological advance, not something anyone should worry about in the beginning. If you have 20 plus megapixels, that's more than enough to share on your social media, your web page or blog or whatever you want to share your work on. Same goes for super slow motion filming features. You don't need ultra slow motion or super high resolution video as a beginner. Most beginner cameras these days have a very solid 4K feature that is more than good enough for learning. I used to obsess about getting the latest and greatest in my cameras, only to figure out later that I didn't use half of them, if even that. What I'd look for is a camera with good focus. Now, Sony is the king of good focus, but most cameras are very close behind, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. What Fuji lacks in autofocus, I'm not saying they lack anything because it's plenty good enough, but they make up for and then some in cool looks and retro feel, and me wanting to pick it up and go out and actually use it. So there's that. Now let's talk about the cameras that I recommend for beginners. Just remember that you will find the equivalent of these camera types across all brands or most brands. So this will be a very good starting point for you. Each of these are relatively budget friendly. They're easy to use on, and I think you'll get the most bang for your buck if you choose either of these cameras. We'll talk about the interchangeable lens cameras, and we'll talk a few point and shoot cameras that is very pocketable. The first one I'd recommend is the Fujifilm X-T5 Mark II. It's a super cool looking camera. It almost looks like this one right here. If you like the look of this one, looks very nice. It has this retro look and feel about it. This camera is a great choice. You'll have great image quality, you have video capabilities, and basically everything you need. And you can also grow into this camera with the accessories you can upgrade to, such as new lenses. The next camera is the Fujifilm X-T5. So what's different from the Fujifilm X-T5 Mark II is that it has a higher megapixel count. I think it's 40 megapixels. It has better video capabilities. So it's basically a more future-proof camera if you have the budget for it. Then you have the Sony a6400. It's similar to the Fuji, but just with a different look. So you have the basic features with photography and videography. You can do almost the same things. It just looks a bit different. So if you like that design more, then that camera might be for you. And in the pocketable camera department, we have a few choices for you as well. You have the Sony RX100 number 7, I think it is. This is a very pocketable powerhouse of a camera. You can film with it, takes great photos, you can zoom with it even. So it's just a very powerful combination if you value it being pocketable, so you can bring it with you everywhere without dragging too much gear with you. I also mentioned the Fujifilm X100VI. This is a retro powerhouse of a camera. It's more for street photographers. You can film with it as well. but you can't zoom with it. It's a fixed lens. It's a 23mm fixed lens. Now, I'm not going to go into all the technical details, but you can go into any shop and you can try it and see what you think. Similar to the Sony RX100 series, you have the Canon PowerShot G7X Mark III that came out in 2019, I think. So here you can probably score a very good deal on the secondhand market, and it's also cheaper than the Sony RX100 or the Fujifilm X100 VI. So these are some very nice pocketable point-and-shoot cameras that takes up no space at all. You should really consider. Now, for my top recommendation, if you have the budget for it, I would very clearly and obviously go for the Fujifilm X-T5 because it's future-proof. And you can be very flexible, and you can really grow as a photographer, videographer, or content creator with this camera. I think it's a great setup, especially with the new kit lens 16-50 f2.8 to 4.8. I'm not going to go into the technical details, I'm just saying it's a very good lens and a very good kit. And in the jungle of new cameras that gets pumped out every week, I hope this gave you some ideas on what to look for if you are a beginner looking to get your first camera. I think the most important and most underrated factor is definitely when you look at your camera, you want to pick it up and go out and actually use it to create some awesome memories for yourself. If you buy the latest and greatest simply because somebody else told you that this is the best camera and you look at it and you don't want to pick it up and use it, or it's too heavy, or if anything with its size inhibits you from picking up, that's probably the wrong camera and a very bad camera for you. So think about that and don't overspend on features that you might not need anyway. Links to everything will be down below, and if you like this video, you might want to check out this one after. That's how I do it in my street photography. That's what I call my everyday adventure, and an excuse for me to always go out and become a better photographer. So with that, I hope you subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.